Tonight on The Buzz, we turn our attention to the challenges and opportunities for women working in media. Media is still predominantly male, so we talk with 5 successful women to get their advice on how to overcome obstacles and build a career. We start with Tuesday McGowan. She's a freelance creative director specializing in motion graphics and one of the co-founders of the WomenInMoGraph.com website. She shares her thoughts on the power of visibility and working together. Next, Erin Sarofsky is the founder and creative director of Sarofsky.com. She shares the challenges of running a successful boutique post-production design firm and balancing the needs of the company with the needs of her employees. Next, Leandra Dichirico is a young woman in the very masculine world of on-set audio recording. She talks about establishing her credentials as well as trying to work with gear designed for men. Next, Phoenix Gonzalez began her career as a successful actress in Toronto. Now she's a successful co-founder and executive at DotStudioPRO.com. She shares some controversial opinions on mentors, overcoming obstacles, and building a career. Next, Carrie Wootten is the director of the mentoring program for Rise, a UK-based company that pairs women starting in media with experienced women who can guide them along their chosen career path. Carrie explains the role of mentors and why they are so helpful in creating a career. All this plus James DeRuvo with our weekly DotTleNEWS update. The Buzz starts now.
Since the dawn of digital filmmaking,
authoritative,
one show serves a worldwide network of media professionals,
current,
uniting industry experts,
production,
filmmakers,
post-production,
and content creators around the planet.
Distribution.
From the media capital of the world in Los Angeles, California, the Digital Production Buzz goes live now.
Welcome to the Digital Production Buzz, the world's longest-running podcast for the creative content industry covering media production, post-production, and marketing around the world. Hi, my name is Larry Jordan. This was a fascinating show to put together. You only need to see who's walking the halls of NAB or look at the crew on any film set to realize that women are underrepresented in our industry. The bigger question is why, and what do we need to do about it? Tonight, we talk with 5 industry leaders, and, as you'll discover, there are many possible causes and a variety of suggestions on how to fix this imbalance. As you listen tonight, pay attention to the role mentors play in encouraging women to seek a career in media. Second, we've intentionally paired 2 sets of interviews because our guests provide an interesting contrast in their opinions. Compare how Tuesday McGowan views the challenges to Erin Sarofsky's thoughts. Then later in the program, compare how Phoenix Gonzalez views mentors to Carrie Wootten. I'll have more thoughts at the end of the program. Now it's time for our DotTleNEWS update with James DeRuvo. Hello, James.
Thursday greetings, Larry.
And a wonderful Thursday and end of May as well. What have we got for news this week?
FAA may soon require drones to have license plates.
Ooh.
In addition to returning to mandatory drone registration and Part 107 certification for commercial drone operators, the FAA may soon require a license plate with your drone registry prominently displayed on the outside of your UAV. This way, the number would help the FAA to track any wayward drone and contact owners should that drone violate FAA rules. This is in addition to the Department of Homeland Security, which wants to have the authority to not only track your drone, but shoot it down if needed.
So what are your thoughts?
Well, as a private pilot myself, I'm not at all surprised that the FAA would require this. Already, every aircraft requires a tail number to be prominently printed on their aircraft. Even the commercial planes have them. So to require a tail number that is easily seen on the outside of your drone, to me, would just be standard operating procedure and common sense. But don't be surprised if the FAA eventually requires some sort of electronic identifier in the near future. DJI has already developed a program called Aeroscope, which will do that.
Well, thinking of drones, did I hear that DJI announced something this week as well?
Yes, they did, but it's not a drone. It has to do with their Ronin S 3-axis handheld gimbal stabilizer. It's going to be shipping in June for under $700. It carries camera packages up to 8 pounds, has an auto-tune capability to instantly balance so that you can get up and shooting within seconds instead of minutes, and it can even work with zoom lenses and has a 12-hour battery life.
Well, why did DJI create this? Aren't there enough gimbals in the market already?
There are plenty of handheld gimbals out on the market, but most of them support smaller action-style cameras and smartphones or the big, gigantic red-sized platforms. So having a DSLR one, there are a few options out there, but DJI has refined the overall design and given it that Ronin touch. So to me, it just makes sense that they would come out with one that covers this middle-of-the-road camera category. And with the ability to balance within seconds instead of minutes, that's a hell of an advantage when you're out in the field.
All right. Well, that's DJI. What's your third story?
The question is, do third-party lithium-ion batteries pose a real danger to camera shooters? A Nikon camera user reported in Norway this week that his lithium-ion DSLR battery that he bought from a third-party manufacturer burst into flames within seconds of charging it up for the very first time. The manufacturer, known as Honel, found that while the problem rested with the battery itself, it could be an industry-wide problem that could strike any battery design, no matter their manufacturer. And the FAA already prohibits lithium-ion batteries to be packed in luggage for this very reason.
Wait a minute. They described this as an industry-wide problem?
You know, of course they're going to say that. While the company did immediately accept responsibility for the incident and replace the batteries and the charger, pointing to an industry-wide problem doesn't offer much comfort. And to me, and my impression is that they're just kind of spreading the pain, trying to say, well, this could happen to anybody instead of just our batteries. So at best, I recommend that shooters rely on OEM, original equipment manufactured batteries bought by reputable dealers and to steer clear of bargains on the internet. Paying a little extra money for your lithium-ion batteries just amounts to buying peace of mind, and that's always a good idea.
What other stories you following for this week?
Other stories we're following include Panasonic brings a host of new features to the GH5S, GH5, and G9 mirrorless cameras with a firmware update. Acer offers what they call the first true HDR-supported computer monitor for editing and video gaming. And this week, we show you how to be prepared with a DIY filmmaker utility belt. It's time for everyone to suit up like Batman.
And for people who want these and other stories, where can they go on the web?
All these stories and more can be found at doddleNEWS.com.
And James DeRuvo is the editor-in-chief of DotTheNEWS and joins us every week. James, thanks, and have yourself a good week.
See you next week.
Here's another website I want to introduce you to, doddleNEWS.com. DotTheNEWS gives you a portal into the broadcast, video, and film industries. It's a leading online resource presenting news, reviews, and products for the film and video industry. DotTheNEWS also offers a resource guide and crew management platform specifically designed for production. These digital call sheets, along with their app, directory, and premium listings, provide in-depth organizational tools for busy production professionals. DotTheNEWS is a part of the Thalo Arts community, a worldwide community of artists, filmmakers, and storytellers. From photography to filmmaking, performing arts to fine arts, and everything in between, Thalo is filled with resources you need to succeed. Whether you want the latest industry news, need to network with other creative professionals, or require state-of-the-art online tools to manage your next project, there's only one place to go, doddleNEWS.com. Tuesday McGowan is a freelance creative director. She brings over 15 years' experience in creating or directing motion graphics projects. Her work has won numerous awards from most major design competitions, including Communication Arts Design Annual, BDA Awards, One Show, and the Tellys. Hello, Tuesday. Welcome.
Hello.
How would you describe the role of a creative director?
How much time do you have? Most of my work is in the motion graphics industry, basically involved in everything from show opens, commercials, music videos, promos on television, anything that you see with kinetic design. That's usually got the strategy and design sensibilities of creative director helping to conceive it. I work with the client and I help to conceive ideas, and that can go in many different directions, from live action to motion graphics, 3D animation. And nowadays, everything's got an interactive component, virtual reality, augmented reality, you name it. The whole world of experiential design has burst wide open.
What was it that first got you interested in motion graphics?
I was interested in design and I was interested in filmmaking. And I was trying to find a way to synthesize the two. I really love storytelling, but I also love, all the components of good design. Motion graphics is a great way to combine those two. That's where my passion is.
In this week's show, we're talking with women about working in media. What challenges did you face while building your career?
I faced many challenges because, again, motion graphics is a rather young industry. I mean, if you think about it, it's really when After Effects and desktop technology took off, mid-90s, 90s. I mean, it's really a young industry. And I would say I'm the first generation that had access. I graduated with a graphic design degree, but like I said, I was taking filmmaking classes on the side. I showed up in San Francisco at the right time in the right place and had the opportunity to be mentored and to work with wonderful people. But I was definitely one of a few women that were actually involved in motion graphics at the beginning. And it has to do with a lot of things. Gender bias and implicit bias on how we associate technology with male-driven abilities. Back then, things were much more difficult. It called for more people to be involved to make, a simple animation. There's a good friend of mine who graduated from graduate school, and his thesis project was to render and make an orange, and that took 2 years. So the technology has, definitely changed in that regard. But back then it was very tedious and you had to be committed if you wanted to make something in motion.
At NAB this year, you headed a panel entitled Women in Graphics. What subjects did the panel tackle?
Well, I wanted to hear from the generation of women who are out in the field now, working in motion graphics. I wanted to get their opinions about the obstacles that they're facing, because unfortunately women are still in the minority in the field greatly. I'm still working with a majority of men, and I'd love to see more women get involved in the industry. And they were sharing their stories. They were sharing their stories of, again, how difficult it is to break into the industry, how difficult it is to convince people that you can handle a technical field like motion graphics. And they were talking specifically about 3D animation, which is definitely dominated by men. So they were sharing their stories. They were sharing some of their sort of hopes and dreams for the future, and maybe some suggestions on how we can change things for the next generation.
Which gets me to, what advice do you have to younger women who are trying to get into motion graphics?
The younger women actually have it pretty good. If you think about it, one person now has access to all the technology they need. One person can create a film. One person can create a wonderful animation. The tools have become way more accessible, so that's a good thing. But unfortunately, the biases still exist. And I think it's important to get involved and reach out and ask questions and get involved in any local organizations, MoGraph organizations, to be inquisitive, to seek out. You're going to have to seek out information and mentors. And that's a part of the reason why we wanted to have this panel discussion. Just being visible does an amazing amount of good. Just allowing people to know that there are women out there thriving in the field allows the next generation to be impacted. And we've already gotten a great response from the website. I've had people from an animator from Sweden, an animator from New York, all wanting to know more and get involved.
I want to talk more about your website in a second, but You've talked about the implicit bias in the industry. How would you suggest we change to assist in gaining in parity?
We think that the key to that, and we talked about this a lot on the panel, is women achieving positions of leadership. Because it's only in either owning your own shop or becoming senior leaders at a studio that you can impact change. We talked about the challenges of that. You know, women, when they reach a certain age, they decide, okay, am I going to get married and have kids? And that can take you out of the field, and that you are sort of penalized for that. We were talking about a paradigm shift needed to be flexible towards female animators and motion graphic artists that want to be mothers and artists. And it is possible. But being in a leadership position, you can impact change, and you can hire, and you can start an internship program for women. And through that mentorship, we think the next generation, if not two generations, will really see a change. Generation Z is a unique generation because they're very comfortable with technology. So that's an added bonus.
Well, you created this website called womeninmograph.com. What's the purpose of the website?
It was one of those organic things that evolved. Again, I showed up at NAB. Paul Babb at Maxon asked me to participate, and I met these wonderful women. We had a discussion about gender inequality in motion graphics. That was videotaped. And it turned out so well in terms of answering questions and getting a diverse opinion that we thought, well, why not put this up on a website so others can see? And so young animators can take a look and listen and hopefully learn. So that's how it happened. There wasn't any grand plan. It organically happened, as these things do, because everybody's busy working on full time on their jobs, you know. It turned out to be a wonderful resource for women. And on the website, you not only get to see the panel, but you get a long list of resources, as well as looking at the profile section of the artists. We have some really wonderful artists that you should look at their work, as well as, like I said, a resource page. So it's a start. There are other organizations, other groups of women talking about MoGraph, and that's what we need, more people discussing the issues.
And for people that want to learn more, where's the website they can go to visit?
They can go to womeninmograph.com.
That's all one word, WOMENINMOGRAPH, womeninmograph.com. And Tuesday McGowan is a freelance creative director and one of the driving forces behind the website. Tuesday, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Erin Sarofsky is the founder and creative executive at Sarofsky, which she started in 2009. Today, Erin and her team provide conceptual design services to major brands across the advertising and Entertainment Industries. Hello, Erin. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi.
What first attracted you to a career in design?
Well, I was always, as a kid, a good illustrator and had a good eye. So yeah, it's just something I've always been, I think, good at and attracted to.
Well, there's a lot of people that are good at design that don't start their own company. Why did you decide to start Sarofsky?
I always say it's a perfect balance of being talented and being incredibly naive. So yeah, it was at that point in a career when you have just enough connections and just enough talent and also don't know necessarily everything that you're getting into. You think it's like the best, smartest idea to be your own boss, but really your clients are your boss, no matter who you work for or don't work for. So now it's a great thing because I took the dive and I learned as I went. You know, if I knew then everything I know now, I don't know if I would be able to make the same decision, but I'm certainly very glad I am where I am.
Ignorance is sometimes bliss. I agree with that.
Yes.
Now that you're in business for close to 10 years, how would you describe Sarofsky today?
I'd say it's similar as to how it was when we started. We're still a boutique. I don't aspire to be a giant conglomerate in the post arena and visual effects. We really want to focus on a few projects at a time and take them very seriously and do beautiful work. So we're never going to be a volume kind of place. We're going to be a quality kind of studio.
In today's show, we're talking about the challenges of women working in the media industry. And all of us, whether we're men or women, face challenges in building a career. What are some of the challenges that are unique to women?
It's fair to say, you know, growing up as a designer in the motion graphics world, especially as it was kind of just conceived in 2000, 2001 when I started my career, I didn't have any female bosses. There certainly weren't any female owners of the company, no female creative directors. I didn't really see a version of myself above me. I was kind of a designer, and every other woman was either a designer or a producer. And as I had aspirations to grow and focus on the work and to become higher and higher and higher in that kind of scale, I started to be singled out as like, wow, you're the only one here doing that. You're the only one here. You know what I mean? So after that kind of first year, it gets a little lonely. And you just, you know, you don't have anybody else around you really doing it.
Well, there's a lot of women in design. Is this an area where women tend to get pigeonholed?
Well, I think a lot of women are in design, but I don't necessarily know that there are a lot of women in motion design, and certainly not in 3D and visual effects in general. So I'm not sure what the stumbling block is to get more people out of traditional graphic design and into motion graphics and animation. But I think a couple of years ago, you could have said it was probably technology, but we're interacting with devices in a different way than we ever have in the past. So I don't think it's really the same thing for kids coming up out of school these days.
Well, how has it changed?
Technology isn't as scary anymore. I mean, even me growing up, my father was a chief information officer of a brokerage firm, and I got a Mac when I was a kid, and my brother got a PC. For my father being very kind of open to technology and introducing it to us at such an early age, it still was pretty biased in terms of what we were both given and the software and kind of how we were pushed. So I just think that's a little different now because everybody's kind of technology base is at the same level, and it's kind of cool to be a little bit of a geek or a nerd now, whereas back then maybe it wasn't, or it was just not really something girls were interested in. I think in the next 15, 20 years, we'll definitely see a lot of change because of that.
I want to focus on that for a second. What does the industry need to change to make the working environment more inclusive?
There's so many things. To get in isn't necessarily as hard. I don't think people look at women and just automatically kind of shrug it off maybe the way they used to. I do think that there is something about, you know, having a family that usually kind of leans heavily more on women. So maybe there's kind of like a point at which women are kind of forced into making a decision if they're going to stay or go. Production is a very time-consuming career. The hours are crazy and a little bit relentless. So if you are going to have a family, not only do you have to take time off, but also your options after aren't very flexible. So I do think that people would have to consider more work from home type situations or flexible hours. It's really, as a business owner, that's a really hard thing to offer up because you just never know what your schedule's going to be, what the client's needs are going to be. It's not something very predictable, like in some industries. In ours, it's way more fluid. So when there is time to give, we give it, but it's not necessarily something you can schedule. So that makes it challenging.
You know, it's really interesting listening to you because you grew up on one side where you were the employee and the other, now you're the employer, and you see both sides so clearly.
Yeah, it's tough. It's really tough because, like, as being a boutique, I really want to take care of my people and make sure their needs are catered to, and they have a great quality of life. We're always talking about, you know, being in at 9 and trying to leave at 6 so everybody can be out to their families, and we produce our clients in a way that we can maintain that as often as possible, which is rare in our field, obviously. But when you get into bigger life conversations and decisions and things like that, it's so hard to feel like you're giving people enough when you know they deserve so much more. Just humanity, human rights wise, you deserve that time to be able to go through that. So it's interesting.
So let's say you're talking to a group of women who have been designers for a while but are still earlier in their career. Mm-hmm. What advice would you have to them for building their career?
I would say focus on the work, you know, focus on your craft and the work. And if there are obstacles, I mean, you can change up your situation, work for a new studio. But to me, like, what made me indisposable or just, I think, exceptional is that I didn't really get caught up in the drama of being the only girl or feeling like I needed to, like, plant a stake and make something out of it. I think for me, when I realized, you know, at certain points in my career where, like, hey, I'm undervalued compared to my peers, and I mentioned it, of course, brought it to their attention, and they were like, oh, well, you know, for me, it was a point at which I had to decide to move on or to stay and be treated unequally. And at a certain point, it was time for me to move on because of that. It's a challenging thing because everybody wants you for as little as possible. So as cheap as it can be and as fast as it can be, that'll always be kind of, I think, employers' mentalities when seeking out talent. So if somebody's willing to accept less, that's kind of on them, right? You got to know what you're worth and fight for it. And sometimes that means leaving your situation. So I think for women, they need to know what they're worth and say it, you know?
It seems that that's true of just about everybody, as producers want it for free and they want it yesterday.
Yes. Yeah. And it's getting more and more challenging. It's interesting because I'm in this, like, weird kind of catch-22 place. I speaking as a woman that's grown up in the industry, having been through all of the very, very typical bias situations we could possibly call out. Also, though, being a business owner and knowing the strains on us, like, I want to give both men and women time off when they have children. At least 3 months should be what people get off, whether you're a man or a woman. But that's just not the case with how it's structured. I can't afford to give a full-time employee just 3 months off. So we have to work with everybody individually to kind of come up with a plan for when they're out. And it just feels really, really bad because the women obviously need more time to heal. I just had a baby, so I completely know what that's like, having to be away, feeling like you're needed there, all of that. But if there were something in place where it was just kind of like mandated by the government, everybody just gets this blanket amount of time, no matter what your gender is, and we were kind of compensated by the government for it, for their salary or for a percentage of their salary so that we can then replace them, it would be really, really, really helpful. And that would then create an equality so that couples could talk more realistically and evenly about who's going to take on what burden and responsibility. Because right now it is definitely biased towards, you know, the woman taking the time.
Women who are just starting out on their careers, what can they do to give themselves an edge over the men they're competing with?
That's a really good question. I think it always comes down to quality of the work. At the end of the day, just focus on your skills and don't try and be so diversified in all of the different mediums. Get really good at something. You have one really sharp pencil and not 10 really dull pencils, and then people will be able to really, really use you.
For people that want to learn more about you or hire your company for their next project, where can they go on the web?
Yeah, they can go to my website or my company's website. It's Sarofsky.com.
That's Sarofsky, Sarofsky.com. And Erin Sarofsky is the founder and creative director of Sarofsky. And Erin, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Leandra Dichirico is a freelance production sound mixer who works on documentaries, reality-type shows, cooking shows, sports, and some narrative pieces. She went to the California State University at Northridge to study cinematography, but after graduation, well, we'll hear that story in just a minute. Hello, Leandra, welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me on.
It is my pleasure. What first got you interested in a career in media production?
I would say the creativity part, because I wanted to do photography originally, and my parents shot me down on that. They didn't like the idea of a freelance type job, and yet that's what I'm doing. After I went to apply for cinematography, because then I found a loophole, I'm like, well, I'm still working with the camera. That's when the board from Cal State Northridge called me and asked if I wanted to do sound.
So what is it that caused you to switch from pictures, which is your first love, to sound?
Honestly, the board, because I had no idea that sound existed. You hear it on TV, you hear it in all the movies, but you never really think that there's actually someone there recording and making people sound awesome and capturing all the natural sounds of the wood floor creaking or a door opening. It took my college telling me that that existed and that they don't have that many people in that program, especially women.
So how would you describe your job now that you're out of college?
That's a good question. So normally I'll get some kind of a call sheet to give me an idea of what might be happening or how many people we are following. But normally, if they don't confuse me with the makeup artist, I meet everyone and I find out who the talent is and how many people I will be miking. And I'm usually throwing lavalier on the actors and or setting up, if I'm sending direct audio to the camera or wireless and time code, basically making sure that everything will run smoothly between camera and audio. Sometimes I'll hand over a comm tech to the director, depending on if they want it. Then I press record when we get rolling.
You told me that the school recommended you consider audio. When you started out working, did you have a mentor or did you discover this all on your own?
When I graduated college and I was struggling to make this my full-time career, I had an old college friend who was a cinematographer who had a roommate named Anthony Enns, who is a fantastic sound mixer in the industry. And Daniel told me, you have to meet my roommate, Anthony. He does this for a living. He has a lot of gear. And from there, after meeting Anthony, he kind of showed me how he does things. And then he brought me on a couple of his jobs. And then from there, he got a huge movie deal. And he had to give up another documentary that he was working. So he referred me to take over. So he really helped me get to where I am now.
Tonight, we're talking with a variety of women about working in media. What challenges have you faced to get to this point in your career, aside from being confused with the makeup artist?
Oh, there's a lot of challenges.
How so?
When I first started, I got to say, when I walk on set, I got a lot of evil stares, almost like I shouldn't be there. I'm not good enough to be there.
Do you think that was caused by you being a woman or just caused by you being young?
I think both. One, I think they looked at me and thinking, like, how do you know all this stuff? You don't fit the normal profile, like usually sound is, a taller gentleman who's on set. And so I'm throwing them off. I'm short. I'm a female. I'm definitely younger. So I'm defying all odds.
Do you find yourself getting accepted over time, or are you fighting resistance the entire time on the same gig?
After working a couple jobs where I didn't feel welcome, once you get on a crew that truly makes you feel welcome, it's been a blessing ever since, because they refer me to another job, and those producers are great, and everyone who I'm working with is fantastic. And then they refer me on to other jobs, and it seems that since I've been on sets who really appreciate me, it's gotten me onto other sets that feel like family.
I was just reflecting. You said that you're not the tallest person in the world. The audio world is predominantly male. What's it like working with gear designed for men?
Oh, that's a tough one. I had one year where my back was hurting so bad that I thought I couldn't continue on with carrying like a 25-pound pack on my body because the harnesses didn't fit me. And so then I started reaching out to companies, and K-Tech actually came forward, met up with me because they thought I was putting on the harness wrong. And they realized, no, you are a lot smaller than what the normal audio engineer looks like. And so then they actually helped fit me to it. And now there's a whole line dedicated to smaller mixers.
You've started your own fashion accessory line.
I basically did, with the help of K-Tech.
What advice do you have for other young women who want to enter the industry behind the camera, working in sound or working in cinematography?
Do your research and just be you on set, because like anyone can do your job. There's so many people that can do it, especially today when technology is readily available. But it's your personality that sets you apart, and as well as your work ethic. Are you there on time every day, or are you there early? Are you easy to get along with? Those are the things that people continue to bring me back because they enjoy working with me. And so I think that's the best thing that you can do.
So then how important are people skills compared to technical skills?
I would say the technical skill is obviously very important, but your people skills, I think, it also becomes easier because I feel like everyone behind the camera is more shy when it comes to talking to other people. That's usually why we're all behind the camera, not in front of it. Well, that, and we also enjoy our craft. Not to say that we're all born to be actors or anything, but we enjoy our craft. Normally, I used to be very shy, and I feel like being in this role and being where you meet so many different people day to day, and you're working with so many different personalities, it becomes easier and easier, and people skills become quite important, but I think it also grows as you have more experience on set.
What's been the most important thing you've learned over the course of your career so far?
Well, I feel like it's a never-ending learning experience. That's the thing. I think it's being open to the idea that you're always going to be learning, especially when you work with other mixers or other cinematographers, is you are always learning from someone. You're never, okay, this is it. I've reached the max of whatever I need to know. Everyone has their own techniques, and you just got to find what works for you and then be open to learning a new technique.
Leandra, thanks for joining us today. I enjoyed our conversation.
Thank you for having me on.
And Leandra Dichirico is a freelance production sound mixer who works on a variety of projects. Phoenix Gonzalez is the co-founder and president of sales at DotStudioPRO. She has over 15 years of experience in entertainment media and technology. Hello, Phoenix. Welcome.
Nice to meet you, Larry. Thanks for having me on today.
It is a pleasure. And let's start with something simple. How would you describe DotStudioPRO?
DotStudioPRO is a next-generation online video platform. We give our clients the ability to go direct to consumer in their own branded applications across web, iOS, Android, Apple TV, Roku, Amazon Fire, and Android television.
Tonight, we're talking with women about creating a successful career in media. Prior to co-founding this company, what were the challenges that you faced in building your own career?
I actually consider myself fortunate. I became an actress at 24, and I had a very successful career in Toronto, Canada, where I built the majority of my career as an actress. You know, I was in front of the camera, and I worked on a lot of great projects. I was in the Tuxedo with Jackie Chan, and I had my own series. And I moved to Los Angeles thinking that, you know, as the big fish in Canada, that it would give me the leg up of what I needed when I moved to Los Angeles. But any actress moving to Los Angeles should know you're starting all over again. So I moved out here and, you know, quickly realized that I was now a little fish in a big pond. And it was really all about relationship building. And I quickly realized that I didn't want to sit around and wait for the phone to ring. I wanted to actually be able to work. So I went out and got a job in corporate America and, you know, kind of put acting as something on the back burner, which then led to me becoming an entrepreneur. Because really and truly what I realized through this whole process is that I'm suited for building companies. Don't get me wrong. I loved acting and I had a great career. I made a great living, but I wasn't willing to sit around and wait for the next audition and wait for that call. I really wanted to take life into my own hands.
So as you were building this company and you were one of the team that was building it, what were some of the obstacles you faced that were gender specific?
Well, it's interesting, the fact that I'm a female and being in an OTT distribution company is kind of unheard of. This is a very male-dominated industry. So thank goodness I had great co-founders. We really, having not done this before, had to learn from scratch. And I always tell people that as a woman in this industry, I had to really get my MBA the real world way. I really had to learn how to do business in this industry by going out and seeking out mentors and really doing my research and really making sure that when I stepped into a room or stepped up to the table that I was able to go toe to toe with any man, not because they had any less respect for me, but because I am now entering a male dominated industry where you're at war. I mean, you know, let's for real. So I needed to be prepared for war and I needed to be able to know that I was technically equipped as well as my sales acumen to be able to, you know, really stand up toe to toe with anybody that I walked into a room with.
What do you look for in a mentor? And are there female mentors or are just men in this particular part of the industry?
It's an interesting question. So when I started this company, having never built a company before and had no idea where to start, I started with the internet and I used LinkedIn. And I reached out to people in the industry that I researched that I felt like could be great mentors. I reached out to men and women. The difference was that every male that I reached out to was willing to take the time to have a call with me, you know, pre-screen me to see if, you know, if they were willing to give me the mentorship that I was asking for. The women that I reached out into in the industry actually turned me down. Any of the women in the venture capitalist world, as well as in media world that I reached out to, didn't really have the time. They were like, sorry, but I don't have the time. But every man I reached out to stopped, took the time, talked with me, and then got behind me and supported me.
Why do you think that was?
I think that there is a level of, I wouldn't say it's job security, but, you know, I've heard a lot of women in the industry talk about it as kind of like a job security thing. You know, people are always worried about where they're at and that they don't want to have somebody else come up behind them and take their job. I wasn't interested in anyone's job, to be honest. I don't know if that's the case. I just really found that the women that I reached out to who were in positions of power, they weren't willing to help. This is something that is kind of consistent with a lot of women that I've spoken with who are in different fields, who all have kind of had that same kind of experience. So,
well, are you willing to be a mentor to others?
I actually sit on the board of a nonprofit that is called Step Up. Step Up is a national nonprofit that works with underprivileged girls in under-resourced communities, and we help get them career ready. So from grade 9 through grade 12, we're working with those girls in peer mentorship and helping them to actually get career ready so that they can get out into the world, they can get internships, they can choose the right college. A lot of them are first-generation college, you know, going to college as first generation in their family. So I'm a strong believer in really helping and giving back to the community. And that's where I place my focus.
How would you encourage other women who want to start working in your field? I'm going to call it management in the media industry.
I think that it starts with, one, understanding the position that you're going for. Two, seeking out mentors, female and male, to be able to learn from. I think it's really important for women to seek out mentors, or not just women, men too. I think it's important for us all to seek out mentors. If I had known in my teens how important mentorship was, I think I would have been at a much different place in my life. You know, coming from a single parent family, my main mentor was my mom. I think that it's really important for mentorship for you to look at taking internships, even if it's a couple of weeks, just to get your feet wet. It's about, being persistent and also knowing what you're worth. As long as you walk into something knowing that if I apply myself, I know that I can do this, and being realistic with yourself, I think that you have a fighting chance of succeeding.
Do you think women are disadvantaged, or do you think women think they're disadvantaged?
I think that women think they're disadvantaged. This is a very interesting topic and touchy for some at most. But I do believe that we don't have an equality issue between men and women. I think we have an equality issue between women and women. I think that women are born natural nurturers, and we're very agreeable. And because we're agreeable, if not applied in the right way, can be a hindrance to us in our growth. Because if you are willing to just agree and say yes and do the things that somebody else, a man, wouldn't do because they know their worth and they're not really nurturers in that way. If you're willing to do those things, then you have to know that, you're going to be looked on as like, oh, give it to her. She's always going to do it. She's not going to ask for more. If you don't know your worth and you don't know your value, then you're never going to stand up for what you want and what you believe in. I'll give you a great example. Before I got into this business, I worked in senior care when I first, moved out to LA, and I walked into an interview and I knew that I wanted $80,000. And they looked at me and they're like, oh, we can only offer you $50,000. And I was like, okay, well, thanks. I can't take less than $80,000. And I walked out of that room. And because I knew my worth and I wasn't willing to waver, I got up and walked away. And when I got up and walked away, 30 minutes later, they called me back and they gave me what I wanted, because I wasn't willing to waver. And I think that because we're natural, our natural instinct is to nurture and to be agreeable. And not everyone's going to agree with me. That's fine. I just, coming from a single parent family and seeing how hard my mom had to work to get what she wanted in this life, it really taught me the value of knowing what my worth is. And I just really see it as one of those things where, as women, we're willing to settle. And if you're not willing to settle and you're willing to roll up your sleeve and say, I'm going to go to war for what I want, I'm going to stand up for what I want, you're going to get what you want. And people are going to respect you for that. If you don't have the people around you to mentor you and remind you that it's important to apply yourself in a little more of an aggressive way, you have to. You're stepping into the workforce.
So if you were to summarize these thoughts as advice to a young woman getting started in the job market for the first time, what would you tell her?
1, seek out mentors. Do your research. Know what the salary that you're going after is. Know what the position's responsibilities are. Ask questions. Be persistent. And when you walk into that room, know what your worth is and don't back down. You have to be willing to walk away.
Phoenix, for people who want more information about the company you work for and yourself, where can they go on the web?
They can go to DotStudioPRO.com. That is our company website, and there is a contact us form there if they want to get any information or speak to me personally.
That website is all one word, DotStudio Pro, DotStudioPRO, all one word, DotStudioPRO.com. And Phoenix Gonzalez is the co-founder and president of sales. And Phoenix, thanks for joining us today.
Larry, thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity.
I want to introduce you to a new website, Thalo.com. Thalo is an artist community and networking site for creative people to connect, be inspired, and showcase their creativity. Thalo.com features content from around the world with a global perspective on all things creative. Thalo is the place for creative folks to learn, collaborate, market, and sell their works. Thalo is a part of Thalo Arts, a worldwide community of artists, filmmakers, and storytellers. from photography to filmmaking, performing arts to fine arts, and everything in between. Thalo is filled with the resources you need to succeed. Visit Thalo.com and discover how their community can help you connect, learn, and succeed. That's Thalo.com. Carrie Wootten is the Mentoring Program Director for RISE. Based in London, she also leads on Immerse UK, a network for businesses working in immersive technology, and has worked extensively developing and delivering new business strategies and high-profile partnerships for educational institutions such as Ravensbourne, where she spent 7 years with a senior management role. Hello, Carrie. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you for having me, Larry.
It's my pleasure. Earlier in tonight's show, we heard Phoenix Gonzalez talk about how important mentors were to her as she was building her career. How would you define a mentor?
So I think there's a difference between mentoring and coaching, and mentoring is definitely for those who are looking for suggestions about how to improve their career or get advice or support. And definitely those women who are involved in our program are looking for that kind of guidance and direction as well, definitely.
Then given that definition, how would you describe both RISE and what you do for RISE?
So RISE is, we're set up last year, so a year ago now, and it's there to raise the profile of women within the broadcast tech sector and to encourage younger women to join the sector and feel as though they can progress within the sector and kind of break that glass ceiling that we think is there. And then my role within RISE is as you mentioned, the mentoring program director. So we've launched our inaugural mentoring program that kicked off, the marketing kicked off in January this year, and we've just begun the mentoring program, and I'm managing that process because I feel that it's really important. As many women within the industry will know and recognise, if you attend any of the broadcast events around the world, whether that's NAB or IBC or the Media Production Show in London, the gender balance is not there still. And I think many women who have been working in the sector for a long time now still don't see that progress and still don't see that change. So Sadie Groom, who's the founder of RISE, and I really thought that we needed to champion and support those women and up and coming women who are not new entrants, but are kind of starting their careers and looking at kind of where their next steps might be. We need to support them as much as possible to ensure that we don't lose that talent and ability and skills and knowledge. So we passionately believe in making that happen, which is why I wanted to be involved in RISE and making sure that we achieve that.
There are certain areas in media where women, I think, have the dominant role, but there's others where women are much less present. Is this because women are pigeonholed into specific careers or prevented from going in areas within the industry?
I'm not sure it's necessarily that they're prevented. I don't think anyone is necessarily stopping them, but I think there's still some work to do by employers to understand that women can do certain jobs like engineering or operations. So I think there is still some education that needs to happen, and for those employers to ensure that they're considering women for those types of roles. And then it's also about educating our younger girls. I mean, I'm talking, 5 and 6 year olds up through their kind of education system to ensure that they understand where those opportunities lie, that actually, there is a career path through these types of roles and within this sector. So I don't think it's necessarily that they're being pigeonholed. I think it's women in understanding that there's potential there, that actually they could go and do these types of roles. And that's one of the things that we wanted to make sure happened with the RISE mentoring program as well, that we welcomed women from other sectors into this mentoring program as well, because we feel that the only way that we're going to address the gender imbalance within the sector is not only to support and champion women who are already within the sector, but also to ensure that we're attracting women into it from other sectors as well. So it's there may be some perceived barriers there, but through this program, we're trying to break those down and make sure that women understand that there's a real opportunity here for them within this sector and that it's a fantastic sector to work in.
An interesting comment that Phoenix made when I was talking with her was that when she reached out to men and women asking them to be a mentor, all the men said yes and all the women said no.
Oh, that's interesting.
Do you find that response typical?
No, we haven't. All the women we've approached for this mentoring program, because actually, so we've got 17 mentees and we've got 17 mentors, and actually they're all women, and I can explain a bit about why that's happened. But no, all the female mentors that we approached all said yes. I think those women who are on our mentoring program have all been mentored themselves, so they all understand the chance that it gives you and the strength and confidence that a mentoring program can give you, and they're really passionate about making sure that these younger women come through as well. So no, I haven't experienced that.
You mentioned that you had 17 women mentors. Why all women?
Well, that's interesting. I don't think we necessarily set out to say we're not having any male mentors. In fact, we definitely didn't do that. But actually, on the application forms we received from the women, many of them specifically asked for female mentors. I think because they wanted to see and talk to women who had already been through some of the journeys that these younger women were undertaking, and I wanted to seek advice and support and have those kind of role models who were at more senior levels within the sector. And I think as it developed, it's just the way that it's happened, but it certainly wasn't a designed plan that we weren't going to be including men. And actually, we had many men come forward and say that they'd be more than happy to be a mentor. And actually, as the kind of promotion of the opportunity kind of progressed, we had lots of people contact us presenting themselves and saying that they'd volunteer to become a mentor on the program. And actually, that's really exciting for us for next year, because this is our first year and we've only taken 17 women, but obviously next year we hope to bring on more women, and then if we've got a whole set of mentors who are excited by the opportunity, then that's great news. It means that we're doing something right and that actually we can support more women.
Given your experience, what advice do you have for a woman who wants to grow her career, gain a competitive edge, and make sure that she's moving forward rather than stagnating in a position where she is now?
I think that's a really good question. I think mentors come in all sorts of guises and all sorts of ways. You have mentors within your immediate colleagues, within your managers, if you're on a film crew, in your film crew, within your personal life, your friends, your family. But I think it's about finding those people who you trust, who can kind of help support you and point you in the right direction, and have those open conversations as well. The sector's wide as well. There are many opportunities within the sector. So I think if you're looking for something new or something different, then looking at different types of job roles as well is important. And creative skill set exists within the UK as well. Great resource for careers and new entrants and CPD courses. So there are organisations out there that do support people within the sector who want to kind of progress and develop their careers.
So clearly, one of the pieces of advice you have is to get additional support. What other advice do you have for someone who's trying to grow their career?
Well, I think it's making the most of the opportunities that exist. So the shows that exist and using the networking opportunities there. So you make new contacts, reading all of the industry news that is happening so you understand what's going on in the sector, making the most of the opportunities that you do have and grasping them with both hands and going for it and not being shy about making that contact with other companies and other individuals within those companies, but doing your research in advance to ensure that you know where what you're talking about and why you want to talk to that person. And LinkedIn is a great resource for that. Making new contacts and understanding what's going on in the sector and who you might know and how they might be able to support you.
Carrie, for people who want more information about your program, or for those outside the UK who want to learn what you're doing, where can they go on the web?
The website address is risewib.com, and the Twitter handle is @rise_WIB.
That website is RISEWIB as in boy, risewib.com, and Carrie Wootten is the Mentoring Program Director for RISE, as well as deeply involved in Immerse UK. Carrie, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks, Larry.
I was just thinking about the range of opinions expressed by our guests this evening. We can all agree that there are not enough women in media, whether in front of or behind the camera or in executive positions. The bigger issue is, how do we fix it? One idea that came across forcefully is the important role that mentors play in guiding a career and acting as a role model. But another, which Erin Sarofsky expressed most clearly, is that the creative nature of the industry, combined with increasingly tight deadlines and ever-shrinking budgets, makes each person on a crew almost irreplaceable. We all know that if 3 different actors were to portray the same role, it would be significantly different with each actor. The same is true for different directors. We've all seen examples of the same scene created by different directors. Well, this creative sensibility extends throughout the entire crew. Different cinematographers or art directors, costume designers, audio mixers, motion graphic artists would all treat the same basic script differently based on their own personal creativity. That's what makes watching different programs so much fun, to see different creative interpretations of the script. In other industries, if someone wants to start a family or take a vacation or is injured, resources exist to give them time off by temporarily filling their position with someone else. In our industry, losing a key member of the team changes the actual look and sound of a production. We've set up a system where no one can afford to take time off because it affects the final result. Worse, as budgets continue to fall, there's no extra money to allow us to have people on standby to cover unexpected time off. I sympathized with Erin, trying to balance the needs of her business with the needs of her employees. I've been there in my own company, and this is a balance that is very hard to get right. Another challenge lies in convincing young girls that working in media is worthwhile. Yes, there are more men than women, but a bigger issue is that most jobs are freelance, and living with that level of employment uncertainty is uncomfortable for most of us. I can't think of any freelancer that wouldn't prefer a long-term job so they could concentrate on doing their work rather than worrying about looking for work. I don't see any change in the trend toward more and more freelance gigs. The key then is, how do we make this less scary for all the kids, either male or female, coming out of college and trying to decide what to do with their lives? All our guests raise some very complex issues where the answers are equally complex. Clearly, we need to make our industry more inclusive and more balanced. But how is a question I'm still thinking about. I want to thank our guests for this week. Tuesday McGowan, Freelance Creative Director, Erin Sarofsky with Sarofsky.com, Leandra Dichirico, Freelance Audio Recordist, Phoenix Gonzalez with DotStudioPRO.com, Carrie Wootten with RiseWIB.com, and James DeRuvo with doddleNEWS.com. There's a lot of history in our industry, and it's all posted to our website at digitalproductionbuzz.com. Here you'll find thousands of interviews, all online and all available to you today. And remember to sign up for our free weekly show newsletter that comes out every Saturday. Talk with us on Twitter at DPBuzz and Facebook at digitalproductionbuzz.com. Our theme music is composed by Nathan Doogie Turner, with additional music provided by smartsound.com. Our producer is Debbie Price. My name is Larry Jordan, and thanks for listening to the Digital Production Buzz. The Digital Production Buzz is copyright 2018 by Thalo LLC.